And we're live. Hey, everybody. How you doing? It's your man, James, Mr. Sequential Treasures, back again with some more live stream action for you. Today is another one of our sequential thinking pieces, and it's kind of a special one because if you don't know this, was just 1 week ago today was the very first sequential thinking piece 4 years ago. So I've been doing these for 4 years. I can't believe it's going by so quickly, but so it is. So it's kind of almost like an anniversary event. I'm glad you could join me today. I hope you're having a good day. And today we're going to be getting into the discussions about some of the happenings with the comic book shill media and their little mini meltdown over losing out on their Eisner Award being removed from the slate that they have there, and what it all means and why that is. And so we're going to get into that in a moment. But first, I want to thank you all for joining me and say, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. I appreciate that. And if you can help out with a like or comments, please do. I always appreciate those as well. But we're going to get into our topic here, and I'm going to get it started. Let me start out here with sharing the screen. We'll get right on into things. Okay, and here we go. This is from a site called Popverse, as you can see, celebrating the best of TVs, movies, and comics. And just a couple weeks ago, the most popular comics awards, the Eisners, dropped journalism as a category for 2024. Now, for those of you who may not be in the know, the Eisners is sort of like the Oscars or the Emmys for comic books. And for the last several years, they've had, for quite some time, for like last 20 years, I think they've pretty much had a category for journalism, but they're dropping it this year. And of course, all the show media sites are just all head up angry about it. And we're going to get into why that is. But first, we want to get into just basically what happened. And it says, the Eisner Awards are now open for submissions, but there may be a couple of surprises for those waiting to submit. And this article is by Tiffany Babb. And she goes, submission for the 24 Eisner Comic Award Industry Awards are now officially open, but there's a surprise on the list. The slot for comics-related periodical or journalism is not included among this year's category awards. There is a slight cravat here. While the periodical journalism award has been left off the submission list, the website also considers the announced categories tentative and states that the judges may add, delete, or combine categories at their discretion. These cravats are not new additions to the site, however, and it is definitely worth noting that comics-related journalism periodical was on the submission list last year. So you can see right now they're already starting to cry, because they're saying, they understand that they can do what they want. They're telling you it's subject to change. You can do what you want with it, but it was there last year and the year before, and so why are they getting rid of it now? See, it's already beginning right here. Continuing, when we reached for comment, Eisner Awards Administrator Jackie Estrada directed attention to the above cravats and clarified that the periodical journalism category has been combined with the comics-related book writing. Comic-related book writing for comics, journal-related periodicals have been combined with the comic-related books. Online journalism sites are welcome to submit in that overall category. So you can still submit to them and try to get on, but the journal has been merged with another category instead of having its own separate one. The Eisner Awards are owned by Comic-Con International San Diego, with Jackie Estrada serving as administrator for the award since 1990. As for when comic professionals and fans can expect to hear about the official chosen award nominees, the announcement will be in May. Comic industry professionals will be able to vote for nominees online, and the results will be announced, at the ceremony in San Diego Con in July. So they're telling you that that this is just the what. This is what has happened that has set them off. They had their own category for many, many years, and now their category has been merged in with another category, giving them less options. You see, this is the thing. They said that, because this is something that I saw them saying, was that when they merged this in, it's like comic books, was it the comic related book type of stuff. They go, journalism really doesn't fit in their minds that category, which is why it should have its own. And so by merging it, they not only dilute that category, but they dilute the journalism one and make it harder for them, because after all, there will be lots of other submissions that are not journalism related in that category that could bump them out of contention. And so you think to yourself, well, why does this matter so much? Why is it so they got bumped, so they got put into another category or whatever. It's no big deal, right? It's just a little award. Who cares? It's not that important, right? Well, but see, that's the thing you have to understand about them is this is why they're salty, is because this is their validation. These cancel pig shill media types, they have nothing else. This is what they need. This is like their sustenance, like to say that they matter, that what we do is important, what we do is significant, it's relevant. And by losing out this award, it kind of lessens that, and it lessens to a degree them and what they do, and they don't like that. And again, you're going to see that here with some of the other findings I had. So what better way to show you the unhingedness of this belief of theirs that they are so important than to go with one of the websites that I think is, probably one of the most unhinged around anywhere. And that is, of course, the Mary Sue. And here's our story here. Is comics journalism dead? The Eisner seems to think so, by Samantha Puck. Now I'm going to get into Samantha in a little bit here. You're going to see a little bit about Samantha in a moment. But Comic-Con International has officially opened voting for this year's Will Eisner Comic Industry Awards, one of the highest honors in the business. Now, see, keep this in mind. Keep this in mind, that the word choices that are being used in this is very important. Unfortunately for comics journalists and comics-focused publications, this year's ballot doesn't include the comics-related periodical journalism category. This decision sparked a lot of controversy on social media last week, with creators like David Pepose and John Trumbull decrying it, and others claiming it's a sign that comics are dying. We've heard the latter for years, usually from those in the Comicsgate hate movement. See, there you go. See, it couldn't even get through 2 paragraphs without going into their ideological enemies. This has nothing to do with them. They didn't tell the Eisners not to do it. They aren't in control of this. But yet you gotta put them in there, because see, again, they wonder why they seem so less relevant, why they're losing these things, and right there is a sterling example of exactly why. Whose primary goal is to be targeting diverse comics creators who work goes beyond telling stories about white heterosexual male superheroes. See, again, look at the qualifiers there. Again, white heterosexual male. So again, just more lies, more bullshit, because of course, if you know anything about Comicsgate has women and non-white, non-heterosexual creators working in it. And the characters aren't all white male superheroes. Hell, some of them aren't even superhero related at all. So again, just all lies, again, because see, they cannot resist hitting an ideological enemies. That's what matters more than anything else. Nothing else matters to these people. Since the COVID-19 pandemic began in 2020, the comic industry has been shaken to its core, and the single-issue release model has been called into question several times. But according to ICV2, an online trade publication that covers geek retail, graphic novel and manga sales continue to dominate. Now, again, what do they not leave out there is manga is what's driving those sales. It's not the stuff from the American mainstream comic book publishers. That's not what's driving the sales. It's manga and, outside stuff like Dogman and some, young adult stuff that has nothing to do with the mainstream comic book industry. But again, see, they conflate that. See, again, this is another thing about the media. They'll gaslight you. Yeah, they mentioned manga because they have to, because they didn't, that would be pointed out. But see, graphic novels and manga. But it's not really the graphic novels that are driving anything. But they won't tell you that. So are comics dead, or are they changing? Now, again, key here, the language they use is key. As a journalist who's covered comics for going on 8 years, I'm inclined to believe the latter over the former, which, of course, is exactly what you would expect them to say, since they're the ones who have been gaslighting you to believe that, comics are doing great. Comics are awesome. Comics are better than ever. Comics are at the best height. They're record-breaking sales. Never mind that it's all import stuff from Japan. That's what's making all the sales. That doesn't matter. It's comics is comics, right? But funny, somehow they had to differentiate about white, male, heterosexual superheroes. Like, had to separate that. That's like a thing that, oh, we got to see that as separate. But yet somehow manga, which is completely culturally different, is somehow just, oh, it's all the same. Again, see the disingenuousness of the people. What happened to the Eisner Awards comics journalism category? Saying the Eisners dropped the journalism as an award category in 2024 is disappointing, especially after the organization has failed to successfully overcome criticism for how it approached said category in the last several years. It's also not the first time the Eisners have flubbed in this arena. This category was on and off the ballot throughout the early aughts, as reported by Popverse editor-in-chief Chris Arendt, a former Eisner's judge and four-time comics-related periodical journalist winner. See, again, got to see, again, notice this. They have to point out, this guy's an award winner. It's an award winner. Why is that? Well, we're going to get into that in a little bit here. Technically, journalists and publications can still submit to the 2024 Eisners. Eisner Award Administrator Jackie Estrada told Popverse, and this is what she told about the whole thing about being in the comic-related books category. Estrada also highlighted the submission that the cravats that judges may add and combine that on. You just got done seeing them whine about, how they had it on and off the ballot and the aughts, and they the last several years they've been complaining about how it's been treated, and yet here it tells them that, well, this has always been the case. It's on the form every year. So what's really the problem? Why are comic journalists upset? Now, see, this is the key. Even though Estrada has assured comics journalists they can still submit to the awards this year, the outright absence of the dedicated category still stings. Comics journalists are typically underpaid at all, whether they're writing, producing, or podcasting, or creating and editing videos about the medium. I'd argue that no one in the field does what they do for award recognition, but the Eisner Award means a lot in the comics industry. Earning this accolade matters, especially as paying outlets increasingly downsize their comics coverage in favor of other forms of entertainment, news, and reviews. So right here, again, the contradictions in what they say, oh, no one does this for awards, but the award is so important. It matters so much. You see, and that's because this is what they need. They know see, again, she admits there's no money in doing this. There's no real prestige of getting a good paycheck or, benefiting anything in any kind of way. All of it boils down to the backpats from your peers. That's what it all boils down to. And the Eisners just aren't, the multiple time award winner of this very award. That's what they go for. That's why this matters so much. And so to not have it in their eyes delegitimizes them. And they're not as relevant, which of course we all know is true. They are not relevant. They are delegitimized, but not because of loss of an award category, but because of, again, as you saw with this very article, they had to attack ideological people, dragging them into something that has nothing at all to do with them whatsoever. Why did you bring in Comicsgate? They have nothing to do with any of this. Why are you bringing up white, straight, male superheroes? That has nothing to do with any of this. Why are you bringing these things up? Because this is what they do. Because they aren't journalists. They are activists. They are propagandists. That's what they are. And they have narratives to drive. And even though they know this about themselves, they still want to feel as though what they do matters. That it's important. Because they believe it's important. We're fighting for justice. We're fighting the good fight. But they're really not. And deep down, they know this. This is why they don't care. This is why they're trying to blow off about, oh, it doesn't matter that we don't really make money doing this, and we don't do it for that reason. And they even try to blow off, well, we don't do it for the awards either, except they do. That's what it says here. That's what that whole paragraph says. Yeah, we're telling you we don't do it for the awards and the backpats, but that's exactly why we do it. Continuing. Frankly, it's getting increasingly difficult to establish yourself as a comics journalist, whether you prefer to review, report, or a mixture of both. Whether a career in this field is your dream or you want to use it as a stepping stone to other careers in other industries like PR and marketing or comics creation itself, it feels discouraging to see outlets covering comics less and less. This also, of course, affects publishers, retailers, and creators. So again, see, trying to pump up how important they are. But we all know that they're not important. What have they done that is so valuable? Reviews? We all know the reviews are tilted. It's all based on, you know, what they want, the narrative they are being used to push. You know, if they want it, because if they were talking about stuff that was, you know, actually topical, they'd be talking about some of the things that, you know, you've seen me talk about in the streams, but they never talk about that stuff. Why? Because they know that that's not what the narrative requires. So it's only what the narrative requires, and when you're doing that, that's not journalism. Comics aren't dead, but the less solid, impactful coverage there is, which requires time, resources, and yes, money, the more the industry detractors feel like they're winning. Well, see, again, that's not the case here. It's not a case of winning. It's more a case of, I told you so. That's what it's more a case of, not a case of winning. Because I don't think you'd find anybody who, as much as they may dislike what the mainstream currently is, wants it to die. But, you know, we've, like, for example, myself and others, we've been sounding the alarm bells for years. Like I said, I've been doing these types of streams on this type of stuff for 4 years now. And where have they been? Why have they not told? They've told us comics are doing great. It's a con man's belief to say that they're not. You know, up until like the last few months, you know, you could never say there was anything wrong in comics. It was all great. Comic sales were through the roof. It's doing better than ever. And even now that they admit that finally they admitted, oh, there's problems, they don't really tell you what those problems are. Why? Because they go against the narrative that they want to push. Rather than removing the comics-related journalism and periodicals category altogether, the Eisner should have changed its approach to the nomination and awards process and been transparent about it. Choosing to ignore a significant portion of the industry isn't the right move. Hopefully, between now and San Diego Comic-Con in July, the committee will reconsider. So notice it right here. Choosing to ignore a significant portion of the industry. You see, again, this is their belief. They are so important, and yet we all know that they're not. But then again, we get to Samantha here, and what you can see right here, they is a fat, disabled lesbian writer and editor who had been working in digital and print media since 2010. Their work focuses primarily on LGBTQ plus and fat representation in pop culture. I mean, there it is. This is it. This is what she's about. She's not about journalism. She's not about, you know, trying to help out the industry. She's not about any of that stuff. It's about pushing narratives. That's what all this says. And it's right here spelled out in her little bio. This is what these people are. And, you know, again, but they know, and they, I mean, she knows what she is, even though she's telling you, oh, I'm a journalist. She knows she's not. Everyone knows she's not. But this is what they do. This is their currency, is that backpat, you know, that attaboy from your peers. And that's what the Eisners represent to these types. It's the validation award. That's what it is. It's the one that tells them you're important, you matter, what you do is significant and relevant. And so to remove that category, even though they're merging it with another, even though they can still submit their stuff, none of that matters, because now they aren't being singled out for special validation. And that's what they're all angry over. You know, you're going to see that in the next bit here I'm going to share with you guys. It becomes even more apparent. And let's see here. Now, she mentioned ICV2, and that's where we're going to go with this one. And here we are. This by Rob Sokolowitz. The Eisner Awards need a dedicated journalism category more than ever. So why get rid of it now? See, look, again, notice the self-importance. It needs it more than ever. Well, you know, I'd say, if you were doing actual journalism, then maybe there would be one. That's the real problem. Is not that they need a category on an award for journalism. What we need is actual journalism, and that's not what we're not getting. But let's get into this here. Let's see what Robbie Boy here has to say about the subject. There's an old saying that you should never pick fights with people who buy ink and by the barrel. Now, again, this is to indicate that he's a writer, and when you pick a fight with a writer, they're going to write stuff that's going to be basically be a hit piece. And then as you see through this, again, you'll see that's what this kind of is. But there is the open threat. See, again, you're picking a fight with the journalists, and now we're going to use our words to smash you. I mean, that's what it is. Because of that, chances are that you've already seen it reported on comic news sites that the Eisner Awards, the industry's most prestigious honor, has decided to do away with the category of best comics-related publication or journalism and roll everything into best comic-related book or periodical award. While I'm typically on the side of anything that promises to shorten and simplify the awards process, this one feels ill-conceived, unnecessary, and ill-timed. And yes, I'll cop to some special pleading here. Last year, I was among the nominees in the now defunct category, won by the late lamented Panel by Panel Journal magazine, edited by whoever, blah, 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 who cares, and Tiffany Babb, who, again, we saw there on Popverse. All of a sudden, oh, look at that. Look at the interesting. The Mary Sue mentions ICV2. This guy mentions the woman who did the Popverse piece. You're starting to see the nepotism in all of this. It was a huge honor to have my work and the publication which it appeared in, Forbes, Publishers Weekly, and of course ICV2, recognized as the judges and the industry, and it's hard to see where we fit in the new schema of matched up against a fundamentally different kind of content with different audience and different purpose. See, again, this is the thing. They're saying, well, it's not the same thing. You merge the categories, but they're not the same thing, and it kind of makes it harder for us. But it's not just about the organizations and the people getting slighted. Of course, that's exactly what it's about. At a time when comics needs more media attention, more outlets doing better coverage, and more support for the publications that have survived a brutal economic era for journalism of all kinds, this is exactly the wrong message to send. See, again, it's not about whether they're deserving. It's not about whether it's important. It's not about whether it's relevant. It's not about whether they've actually earned anything of value. No, what matters is the optics. What matters is being able to push the narrative. And the message this is sending is, wow, these comics journalists really aren't that important, and perhaps not even journalists at all. And that can't stand, because they live off what the great Eric July has called perceived legitimacy. And that is what the Eisners represents to these types. This is their legitimacy award. This is the proof that we are important, and they don't want to believe that they're not. Got something here from Leg Kick. I remember the comic scene and the comic view in the 1980s. They interviewed the artists and writers as well as publishers of the time, as well as gave a sneak peek into the future of comics and animation. Yes, see, there was a time when I would say that, yes, comics journalism was more like actual journalism. Yes, it was. But it's not like that now. It's much more ideologically driven. It's much more, propagandized. And this is why they're so upset. There's a difference between reporting on comics and writing books about comics. He goes, first, let's dispense with the explanation that the category has not been abolished, just consolidated. Covering comics on an ongoing basis is fundamentally different from writing books or contributing to long-form publications about comics, and doing a daily strip is from creating a graphic novel. So he's trying to compare, saying, it's like your daily, comic strips in the papers versus the actual comic book itself. Publications and the journalists who write for them have to make sense of industry news, keep people's attention on a daily basis, maintain editorial standards, and a consistent voice across different contributors, and so many other things that authors don't. And again, this is funny because, if you were actually journalists, that's what you would do. True. But how many of you guys write hit pieces on people? How many of you guys refuse to cover certain stories because of who it's about or what it's about? How many times have you done reviews for books that were no damn good, but you gave them high reviews because, well, we want to keep our access? This is not what I would call maintaining, maintaining editorial standards and a consistent voice. That's not what I would call that. I call that partisan politics. That's what I call that, and nepotism. So it is peculiar that the Eisner Awards, which insist on important distinctions between webcomics and digital comics, and between single issues, miniseries, and continuing series, has decided that in this case, all the stuff that you people who write about comics do is basically the same. Well, it is, because the people who are writing books, they're giving you their take, their slant on everything, and the journalism is the same thing because it's all just basically editorialized. There is no real true journalism going on. There isn't. There's just propaganda and pushing narratives. And you can do that in a book, or you can do that again on a website, and that's what you're all doing at the same thing. So in a way, it's absolutely true that the Eisners are actually smart about doing what they've done, because that's exactly what it is. It is the same thing. In effect, those of us who write about comics on a daily or weekly basis are competing against publications that have long lead times, or authors who have spent years writing a biography of Stan Lee, a history of underground comics, or a monograph on African-American creators of the 1940s and 50s, something that does not fairly honor the work of either side of that equation, except you guys don't do what they just said. So in a way, I guess in a way you are right. It's not the same thing, because if those people are doing those things in the books, they're at least providing actual historical fact and information in what they're talking about. Whereas you guys, well, you decide what the public gets to view. You get to decide what they get to hear and what they don't get to hear. Just like the mainstream media does in the larger world of ours. They don't report on what happens. They tell you through their lens what is happening. They don't tell you what the event is. They say this is what the event means, and this is how you have to view it. And you guys do the same thing in the comic book media, by who you freeze out, by how you cover them, by what topics you allow to be heard and what topics you don't. It's all the same. Perhaps this decision will be easier to understand if we're part of an overall consolidation of sprawling categories that have lost their meaning over time, but that does not appear to be the case. Well, comics journalism itself has lost meaning over time. So, I guess maybe in a way it does make sense. The Eisner should recognize media that helps our industry. There you go. Helps our industry, but you're not helping. That's the point. The comic book shill media does not help the industry. It lies about it. It runs cover for it. It gaslights for it. But it doesn't help it. Unless you consider that help in the way of, because it, again, thrashes their ideological enemies, which of course is the point. Journalists can get a bad rap sometimes, but those of us writing about comics tend to have genuine affection for the medium and for a lot of the people in it. Bullshit. And increasingly, doing this job is doing this work is a labor of love. In words of the great comics journalist Heidi MacDonald, right there, great comics journalist Heidi MacDonald. That right there, you've just destroyed any semblance of relevancy, any semblance of a point you had when you said that. That's just ridiculous. The best way to make a small fortune writing about comics is to start with a large fortune. And even there, pardon me. Even there, you can see right there, I've heard that expression before. That's an expression that's been in the comic book industry for a long time. I remember it this way. How do you end up with $1 million selling comic books? Start with $2 million. That's how you end up with $1 million selling comic books. That's what we all said in the retail sector. There's a reason we always said there was a reason you don't see comic book shops in the Fortune 500. They're on the cover of Forbes and Wall Street Journal for a reason. So even here, he's linking her that saying to her as if she somehow created this, and she didn't. She's just biting off of something else, which I'm sure was bitten off of something else from before that time. Before they were saying about the comic book shops, they probably said about another industry. So again, trying to attribute something to somebody that they stole basically from something else, plagiarism. And yet she's a great comics journalist by plagiarizing an old saying and just switching it up to make it sound about like it's about her industry rather than the one that it was actually about. You can't make this up. Considering that the series ran here on ICV2 in all year in 2023, looking back at 50 years of the direct market, that's not a subject that would get a lot of attention just about anywhere else, but I think everyone who knows anything about comics understands why it's important to document and recognize. Work like this contributes just as much, perhaps more, to the medium than a well-inked issue of your favorite superhero series that remains eligible for awards in 6 different categories. There, look at the salt. The salt. The salt. Work like this contributes just as much, perhaps more. Again, the self-entitled belief of being so important and so relevant. And they, again, more than the well-inked issue of your favorite superhero series. So the actual books that were put out to create the industry that they're talking about, that they're supposedly journalizing, the very product that makes that industry exist is less important than these people who talk about it. That's what they're telling you. The comics don't matter. We matter. We're what's important. We're more important than that. And so now you should begin to be seeing why they're so salty at the loss of this little backpack award. Looking elsewhere at the shrinking universe of comic publications, from long-standing operations like The Beat to newcomers like Popverse to rumor monger tabloids and gossipy YouTube channels, that's as close as you're going to get to them talking about people, like Nerdrotic or Heel versus Babyface or Eric July or any of the others who've been talking about comics for a long, long time. This is as close you're going to get to them admitting that they're rumor mongering tabloids and gossipy YouTube channels. That's what they call them. Never mind, they've been right on a lot of this stuff. That doesn't matter. Who cares how right you are about stuff? It doesn't matter if you're correct, if your prognostications have shown merit. That doesn't matter. Again, just more and more salt. I mean, the salt is flowing so much. I feel like I'm in a salt mine in Utah. They all, in their own way, bring attention to the medium and the business that in ways that, say, books about comics don't, because of their frequency, variety, scope, and scale. There's no reason why they were worth honoring an Eisner. There is no reason why they're worth honoring an Eisner Award for the past 35 years, give or take, and are suddenly no longer worth their own category in 2024. Except there is a reason, and again, we'll get into that reason here in a little bit. It will hurt publishers and creators seeking wider attention. Beyond the fact that comic-based publications are different from books about comics, journalists who write about comics outside of the comic-based publication, including but not limited to yours truly, have historically had a hard time getting recognition, and this consolidation of categories does not make it any easier. So there it is right there. You saw the whiner over on the Mary Sue saying, well, we don't really do this for awards, and yet here he is saying, we have a hard time getting recognition. See, that's their currency. That's what they want. They want recognition. They don't care about what they say is true or not. They don't care if what they do is ethical or not. They don't care what they do is correct or not. Just give me my validation. Give me my recognition. That's a problem because comics have fought hard for and deserve decent coverage in the mainstream press. It helps sales, it helps credibility, and it helps the careers of creators trying to build personal brands and sustainable livelihood. It certainly keeps a small army of publicists and PR folks in business, if my inbox is any indication. So there it is there. Another one. See, again, look at the nepotism. You saw the other one saying, on the Mary Sue saying how, sometimes, that you do this because you love it, or you do it because you're trying to parlay it into another career, like say in, I don't know, marketing and PR for comics. Oh, well, look at this. And they just bring that up themselves. Again, it's almost incestuous the way these people operate. One way to incentivize good press coverage in publications that don't focus exclusively on comics and in the industry is to recognize it. When I write stories on Forbes that focus on worthwhile graphic novels or spotlight underrated creators or break news about companies to readers who would not see it otherwise, or talk about topics like comic censorship, they don't always get the kind of traffic that a pan of the latest the latest MCU film or some other mainstream topic might. But getting nominated for an Eisner last year gave me a great way to win those arguments because I could demonstrate to the editorial team at the site that this work was valued within the industry I cover. That matters. See, again, so there it is. It's all about validation. See, what he's saying there is that, he wants, the award matters not because it's significant because what they do is significant, but because it gives them significance. See, otherwise his work would be seen as insignificant. Who cares? Who cares if you did a write-up in Forbes about some comic book graphic novels? Who cares if you talked about, comic censorship in the Wall Street Journal? Who cares? But see, by saying, I'm an Eisner Award winner, I'm an Eisner Award nominee, that's something I can use to silence those people. See, again, look at it. It always goes back to that somehow, doesn't it? They always want to just silence the people who don't agree. The same is likely true with any of my remaining colleagues writing for national publications or websites who had not been recognized for their work because of the previous limitations in the category that had usually made it the exclusive preserve of nostalgia zines and dedicated publications like the Comics Journal. The job of writing about comics is not getting any easier or more lucrative. Even at large outlets, many of which are shedding jobs. Again, something we'll get into here in a moment. The honors and benefits that come with the possibility of getting nominated for or even winning an award help in a small but meaningful way. Yeah, meaningful in the sense of it helps them, feel important. It puffs them up. But what's it really doing? Is it helping the industry? No. Is it helping sell more books? No. Is it helping, the audience to have better product? No, not at all. It goes against the holistic spirit of the Eisner Awards. One of the great things about the Will Eisner Industry Award is that they are named for Will Eisner, who distinguished himself not only as one of the creators of the fundamental visual language of comics and some of its most memorable characters, but also as an entrepreneur, a scholar of the art form, a teacher and mentor, an ambassador of the medium, and an advocate for the business. The awards do not just honor the craft of comics, but all of the various extensions, including special awards for retailers and humanitarians. But again, retailers are important because they're the ones who sell the product. They are necessary to keep the industry running. Humanitarians, well, that's people who do stuff that's actually of benefit to people. But what are these shill media sites doing besides, pushing the narrative, pushing the agenda, pushing the propaganda? That's all they do. And now they're starting to see maybe that's not as important as it used to be. Maybe that's not as, they're not as necessary for that as they used to be. I find hard to believe that Eisner himself, whose work was printed in newspapers, would have wanted journalism appended as an afterthought to an unrelated category rather than as a distinct part of the industry that it is. But it isn't. That's just the point. You're not distinct. You're just like every other media outlet. You report the same stuff from the same vantage point, from the same ideological perspective. And anyone or anything that doesn't fall within that purview is either ignored or has hit pieces written on them to destroy them. That's what you do. And that's the work of a propagandist. That's what a propagandist does. They don't seek out what the facts are and what the truth is. They've already decided this is what it is. And so now I need to find stuff that will fit that narrative. That's what the modern comics journalism does. And that is why you're so insignificant now. This is why to lose that award is very much a relevant thing, and deservedly so. It's not a done deal. And this is when he goes into about Jackie Estrada talking about what how the whole thing works and all that stuff. He goes, if you're a publisher, a creator, or a publicist who believes that periodical journalism about comics is important enough to be recognized by the industry's most prestigious and visible award. Please make your voice heard. With all that is going on in the world of journalism these days, it's a crappy enough time to be trying to write professionally about anything. It would be great for comic publications and comic journalists to still harbor the hope of recognition for our efforts. See, there it is. Again, recognition. You see the key words they I told you the language they use is very important. He says recognition. What he means is validation. We need to believe we're important. And the Eisners is one of the ways in which that is done. By us having our own award and winning it, we can then say, look how important we are. Again, something you'll see, like I said, you notice in the one when they mentioned Chris Arendt, who is a 4-time nominee of the Eisner Award. See, that's all it is. It's just it's that sense of prestige, that sense of validity. That again, as Eric July read, that perception of being valid. That's what matters here, and that's why they're all so salty. I mean, look at how much salt you saw in this guy's piece, and this guy is one of the more moderate-minded. Unlike the Mary Sue one you saw was way more ideological in her view of it. This guy was trying to be more quote-unquote moderate, and even he couldn't hold back all the salt because they see what's happening. They see that they are not important, that they don't matter, and it hurts. They don't want to believe that, no matter how true it may be. But I got one more article here for you, and again, this one I think is probably the best representation because it's also the worst representation of that. So let me get that shared up here. And of course, it is Heidi McDonald at the beat. I guess I'll never get to wear my Eisner Awards dress again. AI me. I'll be fine sitting here by this. Great, thanks. That's hilarious. And see, once again, the incestuous nature of this subsection of the industry. She brings him up right there. Very, very first sentence, she brings him up about what he wrote. So how much of a journalist is Heidi when all she's doing is regurgitating the exact same thing that somebody else just wrote? There's no journalism going on here. Just a bunch of circle jerking. Bringing up his threat about picking a fight with people who buy ink by the barrel. And she goes, eliminating the best commentary category in the 2024 Eisner Awards was sure to generate a ton of tweets and outrage from people who spend their lives at the keyboard. In addition to Rob's piece, there was also an original report at Popverse, and then 2 other follow-ups there. Grammy McMillan gave his own thoughts, and then Chris Arendt fired up the Wayback Machine to point out that the category had been removed at least twice before. In 2001, the Best Comics periodical was dropped, but it was back the very next year. And it has this link to his thing. Who cares? For those who came late, here's what happened. On January 10th, the Eisners went out, the nomination went out, and Arendt noted that 2 categories were absent: memoir, which was later put on, and journalism. And then it was explained by Estrada what happened. Again, we all heard that before. Then came the hewing, the crying, the garment rending, and the angry tweets. And here's some of the angry tweets we saw from this. Here's someone named Tim. Hell yeah, we don't do it for the money. We don't do it for the attention, and we certainly don't do it for the accolades. We do it because we hate everyone and ourselves. Yes. That's actually, they're trying to be ironic in what they're saying, but that's actually true. That they do hate everyone, including themselves. I'm sure they're very self-loathing people. But, they do it for the accolades. The accolades is the most important part for them because that's what validates them. And here's Tiffany Babb. Again, we saw the one who wrote the Popverse piece. Saying she's glad to hear the memoirs, part wasn't dropped, but feeling us, but there are just way too many good ones. But feeling a sort of way about the journalism award being dropped combined with the book feels like a major loss. Again, this is an award that in the end really doesn't mean a whole lot. Just like any awards. I mean, look at the award shows of themselves, like the Oscars and the Emmys and the Grammys. They're all, what do you hear about them? Like the last couple of years, lowest ratings in history. Nobody is watching them. It's a bunch of millionaires and billionaires patting each other on the back saying, "Lol, aren't you so great? Aren't you so virtuous? Aren't you so special?" As they go up to accept their award and then tell the rest of us how we're all horrible people, us people in flyover country are just a bunch of scum, who need to do better. That's what they do. And so, how is it a major loss? A major loss for who? For a bunch of elitists? For a bunch of snobs who look down their nose at the people who they supposedly are serving? Get out of here. Greg Katzman. Comics press don't do what they do for awards. They do it because they love comics. Bullshit! X to doubt! But to remove the one category that includes them in the Eisners is a mistake that should be fixed. Well, if they don't do it for awards, why do they care if they get them or not, right? It doesn't matter. We don't do this stuff for awards. We don't do it for accolades. Well, okay, so they took the accolade away. So then why are you so salty? Why are you crying so hard? What's the big deal? You're not losing anything, right? It doesn't matter. You're not doing it for this reason. You just said so yourself. Again, they exposed the lies in their own words. Here's Chris Thompson. This is where he took Katzman's thing and says, "This is so true. I have almost 300 episodes of my podcast to prove. But I think dropping comics journalism is a sad indictment of the mainstream pop culture press. It used to be easy to get genuine comic coverage, but now it's an uphill battle against film, TV, and video games." I'm sorry, have you seen films and TV and video games lately? Have you heard about what's happening there? Streaming services losing billions of dollars? Movies that are crapping out $300 million losses? Video games that people are trashing left and right? Hello? Is this thing on? Hello? The battle isn't because of video games and movies. That's not what the problem is. The problem is that people now see through what you do. There was a point where maybe back in the past, in the 70s and the 80s, maybe you guys did true journalism where you actually gave honest reviews instead of just shill reviews to keep your access, where you actually, talked about topics that actually mattered in comics rather than just talking about your own personal political viewpoints of comics, where you went out and talked to everybody in comics if they were of any kind of relevance, any kind of significance, anything they did where it was like, wow, that was a big deal. You would talk to that people, where now it's we'll decide who will and will not be talked about. And if we decide to write a hit piece on that person, it doesn't matter how great their work is. It doesn't matter how much they've done for the industry. We're going to write that hit piece and all the same and fuck that person. That's what yous do. And that's what people see now. And that's how you've been for quite some time. And now the chickens are coming home to roost. You get the idea. Not even angry, really. Just sad. I'm sorry. Did she read those tweets that I just read? Did she actually read those tweets before she posted them? Because that had a whole lot of salt to me. My God, I've had French fries from fast food restaurants with less salt. In his piece, Rob listed a very good number of reasons for continuing to honor comics writing. We all saw that, the whole thing about the reason for the books and all that. Graham's thesis was that the category was broken and no one could be bothered to fix it. My problem with the Eisner's journalism category which we all have now, it seems, is that it was so ill-defined as to be practically useless. The clue was in the category's name as much as anything. While periodicals can include journalism, periodicals and journalism are not actually the same thing, leading to things like last year's nominees in the category, which include 2 magazines featuring essays and interviews based around material published decades earlier, competing with one individual journalist's combined reporting across multiple outlets. It had become a category with competing apples and oranges and specific rules to ensure that they held together, however unlikely that was. So here it is again. Now it's complaining about the award. You're not complaining about how the award was done, even when you did have it. I mean, it tells you about these people, of their overflated self-importance. We need to have our own category, and not just our own category, but a category that's dedicated to specific stuff that we do, and factored out anything else that could even be tangentially related to it, because we're just that important. But that seemed to be that but there was also this from the pop verse. For those following along with the Eisner Awards' recent decision to kill off the comedy, there's more to the story to be coming soon. Things are very amiss. I wonder what that means. What the what now? Was this referring to the two subsequent stories or something else? My investigation has gone nowhere on that. So perhaps a new bombshell will have dropped by the time you read that. Very smart and relevant things, but I haven't had my smart relevant take yet. So here goes. And see, there it is. There it is. Look at the ego of these people. The sheer unbridled narcissism. This is all about them. Our smart, relevant takes. We're so smart. We're so intelligent. We're so important. And to be clear, I was an Eisner judge, like Chris and Graham, all the way back in 1993. The Comic-Con website tells me, because I knew it was the 90s but couldn't put down a date. Then what did Rob call her? A great journalist? And here it is. She can't even remember the years that she was a judge. She had to go look it up because she couldn't remember. You wouldn't remember something like that? Well, then why are you crying about this award? I gotta feel like the award must not matter to you very much if you can't remember when you were the judge of such things. It's this is supposed to be great journalism, folks. When you can't even remember when you did the thing that you're talking about. I was an Eisner nominee like Robin Graham back in 2011 and 2012, which I also had to look up. She can't even remember when she was nominated. Oh my God. Both years were the occasion to buy a new frock. My one takeaway since I lost both times. I presented an Eisner once, year unknown, but it was when they were presented at a ballroom, I think at the Hyatt. The only reason I know this is because there's a photo of me giving an award to Archie Goodwin with Will Eisner standing behind us. That photo is here somewhere on my hard drive, but I don't have time to dig it up now, alas. Yeah, I'm sure you don't, Heidi, because you couldn't remember. You couldn't remember when you were the judge. You couldn't remember the years you were nominated. You couldn't remember where the thing was held. So yeah, I'm sure you would definitely take out time. You sure didn't have any time to go look up, find the photo to prove what you're saying. See, again, this is supposed to be great award-winning journalism right here, folks. Right here, this is the best you can get right here. Is it any wonder they got rid of the award? I have been to almost every Eisner Award ceremony since the first because that's how I roll. But yet you can't remember when you judged it and when you were nominated and where it was held. Okay. Every once in a while I miss one, but I'm a staunch award presentation supporter for however long it takes. To begin with, as Arendt reported, the Eisners change categories all the time, and a trend to shorten the ceremony has been underway for a while. Moving the Hall of Fame inductions to a separate ceremony is part of that. If you were looking to trim categories, look, I got to be honest, Best Comic Book website is probably the first one I'd cut too. But then I'd be thinking about cutting Best Inker and break Banky's heart all over again. So again, these are people who we love comics. We love them so much that the people who make them, we think we should cut their awards too. And just for those that are not in the know, Banky, that's a reference to Jason Lee's character from the film Chasing Amy. Yeah, you look that up, kids. And let's be even more brutally honest. The Oscars don't give Best Film Journalism Awards. The Grammys don't give Best Music Journalism Awards, although they do give them for best liner notes. The Emmys don't. You get the idea. It's really quite absurd for the Oscars of fill in the blank to give an award to the journalists who cover their media. Except this is comics. Yes, and are you saying comics shouldn't be treated the same as any other entertainment industry? That it should be treated something special, like you guys? Comics are a community as well as an art form, and the Eisners are as much about that community as about the art form in a lot of ways. The ranks of great comic publishers who started out as comic journalists are legion. Gary Groth, Chris Straros, Paul Levitz, blah, 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 blah. Who am I missing? And this is a guy who I guess does movies, a movie reporter, were to suddenly announce he was going to direct a movie, it would be very odd. If John Pearl suddenly announced he was putting out an album of golden oldies, people would cringe. When comics journalists announce they are going to put out a comic, everyone's like, oh yeah, that's great. When's the Kickstarter? So what you're really saying, if anything, is that this is more reason not to have a journalist award for comics, because it's unnecessary. If you're just a part of the community, well, then so what? I'm a part of the community. No one's going for me any awards. How about you guys? Anybody offer any of you awards for being part of the community? No? Oh, how funny that is. In other words, comic folks are generally not as class conscious as some other art forms. It's all fluid. If you're going to honor all the craftspeople and reprint makers and designers and so on, honoring comics journalism seems to fit in with the Eisners way more than any other major award, and several other comics journalism award with no one batting an eyelash. Well, again, but you guys have said that you don't do it for the accolades, you don't do it for the awards. So who cares if they give them to you? Right? I mean, that's how that would work, correct? Funny how it's always different, isn't it? This is another reason that giving out Eisner made some sense. It's all we got. There you go. There you go. Maybe not in the way she was thinking of saying it, but that's the truth. It's all they've got. This is our validation. This is our relevance. This proves that we're important. And if we don't have this, well, we're just like any of you other unwashed masses of fools. We're not important. We're not special, but we are. And that's what the Eisners always prove, that we're special and different and important. Unlike you plebeians. What was that about not having a class system? The entire profession of journalism, writing about things that happen in the world with either an objective or subjective viewpoint, I don't think we can say comics journalism has had anything resembling an objective viewpoint for quite some time, is under attack, both from content creators who monetize platforms that originated to support some form of journalism. Again, this is her mentioning, the YouTube guys like Nerdrotic, As from Heel versus Babyface, Eric July, critical thinking, and even someone like me. That's as close as she gets to mentioning us. Again, what she calls is content creators who monetize their platforms that originate to support some form of comics journalism. That's the closest they get to mentioning. She gets to mentioning us. And those very platforms that are making it nearly impossible to earn a living wage doing it by prioritizing AI and SEO tricks. Wah, wah. So again, now see, again, what else did they say? We don't do this for the money. But yet, all of a sudden, well, wait a minute. But now you're saying you're upset because you can't make a living doing this? I thought you didn't do it for the money. I thought you did it for the love. You didn't do it for the accolades. You didn't do it for the backpats. You ain't doing it for the cash. You're doing it because you love it. Well, I don't see much love there. I'm sort of glad I delayed writing this, because yesterday came the shocking news that Pitchfork was being merged with GQ, and half the staff laid off. This led to an outpouring of sadness on social media. Sure, those Pitchfork guys were snobby and self-absorbed and could destroy an entire career in their heydays, but those writers loved music. They created entire eras of music and made stars, and heck, whenever I wanted to find something new to listen to, I would go to Pitchfork and Pitchfork's best new music and find something. There you are. Now you're seeing it. Just as you said before, where, it's all they got is the Eisner. But this is what she really wants. Right here. Snobby and self-absorbed, and they could destroy entire careers in their heyday. They created entire eras of music and made stars. That's what they want. This is the true reason that they're so upset about the loss of the Eisner, because by reducing their validity, reducing their sense of importance, that becomes even more of an impossibility than it already is. Because that is ultimately what they want. They want to be the kingmaker. We'll decide what's good comics, not you plebeians. We'll decide what's worth talking about and what isn't, not you plebeians. Again, that's why she looked down on the content creators, as she called them, who used the platforms that were supposedly for journalism. Because how dare these plebeians think they have a voice? They don't have a voice. We're the voice. We speak and they listen. Can you see the sheer elitist animosity coming from out of her words? And you can't even.
It's in the details. The elements that speak to you.
Or anything like that. You can't say that I'm making it up or anything like that. It's her own words, and she's supposedly a journalist. So she, the written word, she should be a master at this and knowing exactly how to express what she wants. So if this is what I'm seeing and what she's saying, then this is what she is putting across. It's not me. But this is it right here. This paragraph. They want to be able to destroy a career if they want. Think of the attacks on some of the Comicsgate creators and others who aren't Comicsgate, but they call them Comicsgate adjacent, like Eric July. Look at what they've done to them, attacked them, writing hit pieces, trying to destroy their careers, make them unemployable, make them never able to do what it is they do. This is the power that these people want. They're the worst kind of tyrants. But thanks to today's brutal algorithms, the rise of streaming and TikTok, and the general disarray of the music industry, it wasn't working anymore. I can't think of a sadder fate for an indie music site than being merged into Gentleman's Quarterly. But this is where our technocrat overlords have led us. No, it is where you have led you. Firstly, by trying to appease your technocrat overlords by pushing the narratives and doing what you're told, and what propaganda is it that they want told, instead of telling the truth. Because if you told the truth, if you came out and told the real stories, if you actually did real journalism, maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be happening. Because as she noted, this is happening all across the media landscape, not just in comics and even entertainment. Mainstream publications, the Washington Post or no, the LA Times just sacked a whole crap load of people. So, even mainstream journalism is suffering. So, this is what they've brought on themselves. But again, once again, as always with her kind, they can never accept the personal responsibility for what they've done. Her and the Rich Johnstons and the CBRs and the Chris Arendts, who've spent years denigrating anything they didn't like, telling you that those people are bigots and these people are Aristophobes. All these years they've done that, driving wedges between fan bases, driving wedge between fan and creators, driving a wedge between the art form and the people who love it, doing all these things that they have done to keep their access, to keep their relevance, to keep their validation award. All these things they've done, and now they're saying in the end it's not going to work anymore because it's all failing on all fronts. This is what happens when you hire activists to report. This is what happens when you hire activists to put out the word. And now that this DIE bullshit is doing exactly what it spells, they're all losing their jobs. It shouldn't be a shock. Seeing the music journalism profession gutted is a shocker, I got to admit. Music journalists have always ranked way, 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 way higher on the status scale than comic writers. There are famous world-changing music writers. There are many writers about music who still make a living doing it. They even have made a much-loved movie about music journalist. Comic journalists can only aspire to write about movies or music and make a living writing, something you can't do in comics. In All the Lamentations, I did find this corker of an exchange. And this, I guess, is a couple of couple of people talking about the music industry. He goes, I don't think music reviews are really necessary anymore. Most artists make their entire albums available. Most artists make their entire albums available for you to listen for free. Listen and decide for yourself if you like something. The problem is hearing about the album's existence in the first place. Reviews do a huge amount for an album's visibility, both in the word of mouth sense and nowhere near enough to get heard, in my opinion. But again, in your opinion, which evidently doesn't really matter that much because it's not working, because that seems to be enough, because there are still plenty of people making books, making music, making movies who don't get the benefit, the quote-unquote benefit of journalists talking about them, and yet they can still make money. Again, I know it's an easy one to keep going to, but Eric July is a perfect example. He's had 3 pre-order campaigns for his books and has made $7.5 million in those 3 campaigns. How much media coverage did he get for any of them? Virtually nothing. Outside of, again, some of those content creators that Heidi has her nose up at. So, yes, it is very much just your opinion that social media is not enough, because evidently it is, because there are people out there making the money, finding success without you. Dan Lasac is a musician whose album got a 0.2 rating on Pitchfork, but even he knows we need more journalism, not less. Yes, maybe journalism, but we don't need more of what you guys do, which is propaganda. We don't need more of that. We don't need more hack journalist activists going around writing hit pieces to destroy people, going around giving softball, reviews to comics or whatever entertainment form because you want to keep your access and your freebies and your invites to the parties and all that crap. We need more real journalism, but not your corporatism. We're in a crisis of discoverability, and everyone, including comics publishers, know it. Buzz is still essential to breaking out of the pack and gaining a following. And the trusted sources that give you a reliable guide are still valuable, whether you know it or not. Someone has to influence the influencers. There it is again. See, there it is again. Someone has to influence the influencers. See, they want to be the power. This is what people like Heidi McDonald and all the others you saw here and the other ones mentioned, this is what they all think of themselves. We're the power. We make these things happen. Not the people who write the books, not the people who promote the books, not the people who buy the books. We make that happen. We're that important. We are the influencers of the influencers. We're the power behind the throne. I could write another 1,500 words, or 15,000 words, really, about the decay of original writing, already tenuous and absolutely being gutted by the entrails of smeared along the road in the shift to AI, for instance. I've noticed this myself. I have to keep scrolling past tons of sponsored results and miserable Wikipedia scraping content farm aggregators to get anything useful anymore when I search. The irony of having to resort to the reeking P-NATO that is Twitter for information on these topics is not lost on me. See, again, thumbing your nose at what is actually influencing the influencers. You see, that's the thing, is that the social media has changed the game for any type of, journalism. You no longer have to listen to the quote unquote authoritative sources. There are plenty of other people out there on the ground. Sometimes you're on the ground closer to it than these people are, who are telling you what's going on. And you can find it all on social media. You don't need them anymore. And this is why they're so salty about the loss of the award, because that award validated them as we are important. Because as you've seen in Heidi's piece multiple times already, she wants to be the power. She wants to decide who gets to be a star and who doesn't, who gets to have their career in this industry and who doesn't. That's ultimately the power she wants. And of course, we all know this because she's part of the Whisper Network. So she's been at this for quite some time. This isn't new information. Aside from losing our tatty little Eisner Award, times have never, ever been worse for comics writing on the internet. And I say that as someone who has written some state of the industry piece every year for 20 years. No, Newsarama is no more. CBR, I'm told, is limited to a handful of stories about comics a day. I know Popverse Gang is doing its best, but their front page is 90% media headlines. I was told this week that comics coverage has been cut almost entirely at another fairly prominent pop culture site. Comics news just doesn't get any traffic, and the cold equations that say it doesn't pay so, and comics news just doesn't get any traffic, and the cold equations say that it doesn't pay, so out it goes. Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. You're of no relevance. You do not matter anymore. See, because this is the thing. People like Heidi, they used to get paid by the publishers. They would pay her to give softball reviews, to give, softball interviews to certain creators, to promote certain works, in the form of quote unquote advertising revenue. But now they're not doing that anymore. Why? Well, because they don't have any money. Why? Well, because the big corporations who own the publishers, your Disneys, your Warner Discoveries, they don't have the money anymore. And even if they're independent minded, like say IDW, who was on the New York Stock Exchange and now no longer is, they've been delisted because their price has gone down so much. They're no longer paying anymore because they don't have the money to give. Because they're too much worried about keeping the businesses even afloat, let alone paying for shills to shill for them. And that's what they're seeing now. It doesn't pay when we could just do it ourselves on social media. This is fear. This is fear right here. This is their greatest fear. You are no longer necessary. You are a redundancy. You are not needed. To use one of the lines from one of my favorite episodes of The Twilight Zone, you are obsolete. And that's something that someone like an egomaniac like Heidi MacDonald could never abide believing. I do salute comicbook.com, which manages to have a fairly robust comic section every day, but even if it's buried in approximately 2,000 other stories. Of course, ICV2.com is here for the long haul and did a stunning job with their spotlight on the history of the direct market last year. And there is one other site, but since they never link their sources, I won't link to them. So again, just further proof of my point. Look at her deciding, instead of saying, well, I'm going to say who this person is at least give you the name so you get to know what you don't. If I don't want you to know about this comic or this creator, I will talk about them. Or if I do, I'll make sure it's negatively. And that's again, just more of the same. That leaves us rough and tumble scrappers who are doing it for love. I salute my peers at Graphic Policy, AIPT, Brooklyn, the Comics Journal, Women Write About Comics, ComicCon.com, and other sites I can't think of right now because, incredibly, when you search for comic news, they don't even show up in the first 100 results. The BBC and Mashable do, though. That's what we're up against, folks. Google has absolutely pulverized small, independent websites unless you aggressively game the system with SEO, SRPS tricks. And AI has made that even more difficult and made original human-crafted content even harder to find. The blogosphere is dead. And unless you were to work side by side with Nazis, the newsletter revolution has stalled out. There it is. Couldn't get through it. She just couldn't do it. And now, even an Eisner Award nomination. I always say this, they will carry me out on my shield, crushed beneath a stack of teetering omnibuy from Image. This is what I do. It's fun writing these things, and I meet cool people and get to read cool books. Truthfully, the collapse of the military-industrial comic book site complex is great for the beat. Since we never needed an audience of more than thousands, not millions, we'll keep serving up our fresh content to those thousands. And maybe if Google looks the other way, those people can find our content. I'm cool with ever winning an Eisner or ever getting nominated again. When I got on stage with Archie Goodwin and Will Eisner in front of, at best, a few hundred people, it was a lot different than the huge Indigo Ballroom presentation today. Of course, like everyone, I imagine having my moment to speak in front of my peers, but that's oh, let's feel so bad for Heidi McDonald, folks. The salt is unreal, folks. I mean, I cannot believe these people think so highly of themselves that what they do is somehow, of relevance, that it's somehow necessary, even as they're being shown time and time again that it's not. They've spent all their time propagandizing us for years now, gaslighting us, lying to us. And then they wonder why it is that suddenly, well, no one seems to care about us anymore. We don't seem to matter. Well, when you've lied to the people often enough, they stop listening. I guess you never heard of the story of the boy who cried wolf. But, in case you think, well, James, you're being a little harsh, don't you think? On Heidi McDonald and the rest. They're not really all that bad, are they? Well, let's have a little look-see, shall we? A little stroll down memory lane with some classics. And a couple new ones I found. Of course, here she is right here with the biggest gaslight of all. Turns out comics are not dying. Don't believe the charlatan con men. And you can see dated here, June 30th of 2020. And here's one I found dated from just last month. Friends of the shop, I have something really big to ask of you. Do you like having Arsenal comics and games in Newbury Park? Then we need your help as this holiday season to ensure we'll be back for another year. As much as it pains me to ask for help, I have to put aside my pride and level with you. This location has not been doing well for some time. I have done as much as possible to hustle, work the numbers, promote, but even with the help of some great staff and awesome customers, it has just gotten too hard to get through this really difficult year for Arsenal. Things can't continue the way they have been, and it's finally time to consider closing the Newbury Park location and if things don't pick up. We have so much fun stuff planned for our counter our slowest months of January and February, but to even get that chance, we need to have an awesome holiday season. I mean, one for the record books. It hurts my heart to be spending my time writing this instead of working on new Christmas commercials, but I really believe we have to have some awesome fans out there in the Conejo Valley who want to have a place to go to play games and get the latest comics they can't get anywhere else. Whether you have a pull file or a shopping list for the people close to you, we'd love to help you out. And if you're not local, feel free to head over to our website and order something to let us know you're out there rooting for us. And if everything goes well, I'll be back here next season filming a brand new legendary Christmas commercial for your Arsenal Newbury Park. So here's a guy whose store last month needed to have the most awesome Christmas sale ever in his history to save it, or it's going to close down. Now, I don't know what happened with this in the end. Did he make it or not? I don't know. But how could you say comics aren't dying when you have things like this happening? You see, this is the disingenuousness of people like Heidi McDonald in the quote-unquote comic book media. And here's some more from her. Comics are doing great. Periodical comics are struggling in various degrees. They also have no sales charts to show bestsellers. Honestly, we have no idea how well or badly they are doing until we get sell-through numbers. Would your store participate in such a project? And why? And I love the Hail the Lord asks, why are you lying? Yes, we do know. We do know that they aren't selling well. That the reason is because you have no sales data. That's why you don't know. Because if you had the data, you would know just how bad it actually is. And the industry does not want you to know. They do not want you to know because then the public will know. And then the public will call them out rightfully for it. This is what I'm talking about. See, this is the disingenuousness of Heidi McDonald and her ilk. This is what they have been doing for literally years now. This kind of gaslighting. And they wonder why they're seen as irrelevant and unimportant anymore. More with Heidi. Someone asking, whatever happened to the sales chart. He goes, I dug a little bit into the rise and fall of the comic book sales chart, and I think it can be argued that we need them now more than ever. Sales charts are good for morale. To which someone comes in here and goes, morale will be crippled if that happened. And she goes, I hear what you are saying, but right now we have no success stories. No one can say I'm a bestseller. I think that hurts. I think part of the malaise in periodical comics right now is because of this. Again, so stupid. No, the malaise is because the work sucks, and people know this, even without people in the quote unquote comic book media giving proper reviews, telling them how bad these comics actually are. They figured it out for themselves, either by watching people on those platforms they've monetized, as Heidi put it, because see, those people have the one thing Heidi McDonald doesn't: authenticity. Like take me for example. I've only got less than 200 subscribers, but all those people who are following me, they all know whenever I'm up here talking about something, I'm telling you true, and I'm telling you from the heart. I am honest about it. And I am telling you what is actually real. I'm not gaslighting you and telling you, oh, this is what it is when it really isn't that. I am authentic. I am true. I am honorable. These are all things Heidi McDonald and her ilk are not. And that is why they are so unimportant. And again, she continues to show you just how much she hates the very people she supposedly servicing with her efforts. Finally, just for the comics are dying crowd, no, they are not. And bro, like 90% of not, it's because she brings this thing about adult graphic novels rose 4.6% in 2022, and someone says, bro, it's like 90% manga. Your woke comics don't sell. Squat. She goes, manga is woke. Female readers and creators, Asian themes, that's not woke. Lots of gay themes in manga as well. It's only woke when they do it in the US. And he goes, where do you think woke is anything and everything not straight white male oriented? You sound like what you accuse Comicsgate of being. Yes. Heidi McDonald is the bigot. She is the bigot. Her and those of her ilk are the bigots. And they're always the ones calling everyone else bigots. But she continues on. Well, then what is it? And then someone tells her, manga isn't woke at all. Diversity was never the problem. They put entertainment and quality over agenda. They also didn't insult their fans, which helps. And he links it to a video that explains it. And he goes, I'm not going to give money to anyone by watching the video. No one has ever explained what woke means when I ask. So somebody did explain what woke means and gave her a link to a video to even further explain it. But I'm not going to watch that. This is a reporter, folks, who refuses to see the evidence, to see the data and information. And yet she wants you to trust her knowledge, her perspective, her viewpoint. So Ethan Van Sciver comes in. Woke means fervently believing that humanity is divided into oppressed and oppressor classes, and that racism, sexism, and homophobia are systematically built into every aspect of society. Its devotees are activists who force coercion with who force correction with artificial race and gender quotas. And then she goes, because he did that. There is the grammar Nazi right there. When this is what you do, it's because you got nothing else. He goes, thanks for the otherwise articulate definition of your belief system. His belief. She asked what woke is, He told her, and well, that's your belief system, which I find quite simplistic, but effective for selling your books to people who don't want to feel like they are participating in a system of oppression. So again, so he explained to her what woke is. She said, she had, oh, I don't, no one's ever explained what woke is to me. He did. And then she says that, well, that's just his viewpoint and it doesn't work because, she sees it as simplistic. And yet she calls it, people, to people who feel like they don't want to feel like they're participating in a system of oppression. So she knows what woke means. She's always known. She's a liar. These people are liars on top of everything else. Well, darling, we have a limited amount of word count here, and I'm not sure we've got your attention. When your website is gone because you were fighting all of the oppressors in comics instead of helping make comics that paying customers want to buy, maybe you'll perk up. And she goes, I doubt that will happen. I cover all kinds of comics that people want to read, just not 90s nostalgia. She goes, where can I donate to this website to keep it from closing down? And she goes, buy some Aftershock comics. They need the help more than I do, which again, we're going to see again. This is another lie because you're going to see very shortly. But again, she keeps doubling down with her trying to pretend she doesn't know when she does. We've lost a generation of readers, say Dan DiDio. They didn't buy superhero books. They went elsewhere at the Diamond Summit in 2022. And so Gabe LTA comes in. 0, your self-awareness level, 0. Heidi, it is you and other activist leftists that push the woke propaganda that has ruined the quality and thereby the sales of this medium. Are you proud you helped destroy the mainstream? I only wish I left sooner. Tradition matters. There it is. See, again, she's trying to act like she doesn't know any of this stuff. And yet she's one of the ones who are, I won't say like directly in the sense of like she was like the leader or anything, but she has definitely been involved in this. But again, going back to her point about like, oh, well, Aftershock comics use the money more than I do. Well, here's a little something she did from not that long ago. So this may be a bit strange. So this may be a strange time to launch this, but the Beat needs your help. If you like the Beat, we need your support at Patreon. You may have seen whispers about comic publishers having payment issues. Well, that has affected the Beat as well. Interesting. It's a rough time for advertising in general, and we're owed advertising money that we may never see. I remain optimistic, but I have to be realistic. I've tinkered with the rewards on our campaigns, which have always been pretty casual, but watching the Twitter community at risk, I see that building new communities and adapting old ones is where it's at in 2023. So we've launched new levels that reflect that. Not going to lie, we are in a rough patch now. Current Patreon income pays for our infrastructure, server, softwares, but just barely, and the costs are rising. We are in the planning stages for a Beat 5.0 to launch in 2023. But to do it, we need the support of the community of publishers and readers. Oh, all of a sudden now the readers matter so much. Before they were just, idiots who bought books that, they helped them feel like they weren't oppressors. But now, we need your help. And hey, if you want to advertise, we have plenty of opportunities for that. Two, DM me. The Beat's audience and engagement is still as strong as ever. But to stay there, we need your support. If you have any questions or want to see more numbers, DM me. Thank you. I've been doing this for 20 years because I love being a part of this art form and community. And all Beat contributors feel the same way. Now, first of all, notice this. Now she's begging for money when she just got done telling, oh, well, give it to this. They need it more than I do. But, I guess that was a lie. And here we're about to see another lie exposed. As of now, I no longer work at Comics Beat. The hostile, negative, and outright abusive environment created by Heidi McDonald and her editorial staff towards me made it impossible for me to do my job there. That's all I have to say on the matter. So I guess not all Beat employees feel the same? Heidi? Oh, yet another lie. She lied about not knowing what woke was. She lied about not needing money. She lied about how happy all the employees are to work there. I mean, is there anything this woman will say that is actually the truth? You know, I mean, unintentionally she does. Like I said, in that piece I read from you, you saw her spew out the fact that she wants to have the ability to control who can have a career in the industry and who can't. She wants that kind of power. She let that slip. But I mean, has she ever said the truth out loud on purpose? I don't think so. And here's the other one we talked, Chris Arendt. He goes, we have all lost comics and entertainment journalism outlets. They could have made it longer had we supported it more. Your favorite outlets and reporters could be gone tomorrow if it becomes financially, physically, or emotionally unfeasible for them. Journalism, like justice, is never perfect. But consider where we would be without it. Trying to, again, overinflate their importance. Now will be a good time to note if there is a comic journalism you like. You should support it financially. If they offer memberships or take donations, do so. If they take ads, buy ads and encourage your company to. If you wait for perfect, you will be waiting for a long time. You like creator-owned comics? There's creator-owned comics journalism with The Comics Beat. Oh, there you go. Each of those have ways you can give money to directly. They're begging, journalism, journalists, begging you to pay their bills so they can keep what? Writing propaganda, calling you a bigot, ignoring important stories that are going on, like Eric July making $7.5 million on 3 campaigns. So they continue to tell you that this book is great, giving it 8, 9, 10 scores when you know the work is garbage. I mean, is this what they want you to pay for? That? But again, just more lies. More lies. And again, as if you needed more evidence of this, someone writes in, IGN review of Hogwarts Legacy is very weird because it reads like they wanted to give it a bad review but weren't allowed to. As you recall, there was that big thing with all the activists who were upset about the Hogwarts Legacy game because J.K. Rowling was involved, and they hate her now because she disagreed with them that men can be women and women can be men. So then this person comes in. Video games aren't my lane, but when I was reviewing comics for IGN about 10 years ago, we were in fact not really allowed to give bad reviews. Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! Imagine that. You're here to give reviews, but you can't give bad ones. Why? Well, because if you give bad reviews to the publisher's work, they may not, give us access to stuff. We won't get invited to the after parties, shows, and we won't get freebies. We won't get all these goodie bags if you trash the work. I mean, sure, the work is garbage, but who cares if it's actually garbage? Who cares? Just tell the people it's great anyway, because that's what gets us access. They can't even give honest reviews. And again, I get it. And that's if they even bother to cover something, And here's one with everyone's favorite hobgoblin, Rich Johnson, the gossip monger in chief himself. I think this was in dealing with Eric July, when he wrote a hit piece after the first campaign he did for ISO #1 came out. And Richard Embry comes in and goes, if you're about fairness, where's your article about Eric July hitting 3 million? That's huge for a Black-owned business. Aren't you about inclusivity? Why aren't you celebrating this amazing achievement in comics? And then Rich is, the last time I wrote something, I got attacked, lied about, and generally abused online. Something that he went out of his way to encourage. So, because he wrote a hit piece on Eric July, trashing him, and then people trashed Rich for doing that, that's somehow Eric's fault. Not really an incentive to do it again. Of course not. Of course not. Because if you did it again, you would have to do something positive. You see? That's the key. He would have to write something positive about it. And he doesn't want to do that. He only want see if there was stuff in there that, if it would have failed, I'm sure Rich would have been the first in the line. Oh, right on top of that to tell a story like, see this bigot failed. He put out a book and it failed big time. But instead it's the exact opposite. Oh, can't talk about that. Also, I still have had no response to my initial emails, which were read but ignored. So after he writes a hit piece on Eric, he emails him to get more information, I guess, and then Eric ignores him. Gee, I wonder why Eric would ignore those emails. Why would Eric not want to talk to Rich after he wrote a hit piece on him? Mystery of the universe, I guess? But again, this goes back to what I said. This is how they decide what you will and will not hear. He'll come in and run Eric July down because of things people say about him on Twitter. But when he goes out and has a campaign that breaks $3 million easily, oh, I can't talk about that. And oh, well, I don't, but I don't do it because, they attacked me. Oh, because you attacked him. Oh, I was just telling the truth. No, you weren't. You were writing a hit piece. That's not telling the truth. See, and the incentive he talks about to not do it again isn't that he was attacked. Because again, like I said, if Eric would have failed, he definitely would have wrote another piece. Guaranteed. But he succeeded. And so the incentive to not do it is the fact that it would give positive press to Eric July, which is something he doesn't want to do. See, that's the other thing with these people. Your Heidi McDonald, your Rich Johnson, your Chris Arendts, is they get to decide who gets positive coverage and who doesn't. Who gets to have negative coverage and doesn't. Who gets to even be covered or isn't. I mean, I'm sure we all remember back in the day with Richard C. Meyer's first book, Jawbreakers, right? The very first one, the first crowdfunder, basically you can say the one that launched what we've seen over the last several years. He did that and nobody talked about it. They ignored his crowdfunder until it was over, and then they attacked it. But the whole time it was running, and you could see the number going up and up and up and up and up. Was anybody talking about that? Like, wow, look at the success of this crowdfunder. Nope. The media was silent. Why is that? Because we don't like this guy. Therefore, we don't want to give him any positive press, even if what he's doing is positive, even if what he's doing is of actual newsworthiness. It doesn't matter. And again, Richard Embry calls Rich out for that. Sounds like you're putting your personal feelings in front of journalism again. Like when you admitted you won't write anything positive about Comicsgate because they were mean to you. Just be real, Rich. You have an agenda that you push with your site. And he goes, that's not true either. Like I said, I have emails in with Eric that he's more than happy, that is more than welcome to reply to. See, again, it's on Eric July to do it. Eric July has to reach out to him. And again, I'm sure if he did, and Eric reached out to him and told him what's really going on, I'm sure Rich would not chop it up and parse it in a way to make Eric look as bad as possible. I'm sure that wouldn't happen. Of course it would happen. Because that's what these propagandists do. Again, that is when they're not just completely ignoring it. Now, this is during the whole thing with Mark Miller and that Glenn O'Leary retailer who started the firestorm because he called out the bullshit that is modern comics. And he goes, I've been divided about covering this, given it just draws attention to blatant lies being pushed. I could pointedly contradict their statements, but it would draw more attention. But would it draw more attention to them? So here he is trying to decide, should I cover this story? Because I don't want to give these bigots any airtime, but, it is news. Well, if you're a journalist, you cover news. You don't let your political ideology get in the way of covering a story. You cover the story because that's the news. So the fact that Rich is even questioning this tells you he's not really a journalist. And probably never has been. And McDonald's the same way. Just notice, if you come up with garbage today, you will get blocked. Oh, that's interesting. You're a reporter. People are supposed to come with you with tidbits for news, shouldn't they? But if it's something you don't like, if it's something you consider garbage, well, just get blocked. Again, these people always show you their true face at some point. And where does it all go? Well, like I said, I noticed the Washington Post cuts 240 jobs through voluntary buyouts. And then Time Magazine lays off 50% of unionized editorial staff, becoming the latest news outlet to slash workforce. Just days ago. Last week, Sports Illustrated to lay off most of its staff amid severed licensing deal. The publisher Sports Illustrated is planning to lay off most and possibly all of its journalism of its journalists on staff after failing to pay its licensing fee to the magazine's parent company. LA Times fired 115 journalists in HR Zoom webinar following union protests. Young journalists of color disproportionately affected, with many Black, Asian, American, and Latin staffers laid off too, Times Guild says. The Los Angeles Times said it was laying off 115 journalists, or more than 20% of its newsroom, the day after members of Congress warned in a letter that sweeping media layoffs could undermine democracy in a high-stakes election year. And the 142-year-old newspaper, which has been one of the largest printed circulations in U.S. history, has also lost its executive editor and managing editor in recent weeks. On Friday, the union representing the newsroom's journalists held an unprecedented day-long walkout, urging Dr. Patrick Song-Shung, the paper's billionaire owner, to reconsider a planned staff reduction in response to the paper's struggling finances. So there it is. So it's not just comics journalism that's suffering. All sectors of journalism are suffering. And why? Because they all hired or were started by a bunch of activists, social activists, who are, to me, the biggest losers in the world. That's why I titled this stream what I did, Loser, because that's what they are. They're losers. Social activists are losers at life. That's why they become social activists. They want to be seen as special and important. Again, you've seen this. I showed you this with them today, with what they were saying in those articles. They want to be seen as special and important, but they know that they're not. You see, special is something that is inherent to you. Michael Jordan in his prime on a basketball court, he was special. That's special. Albert Einstein developing the theory of relativity. That's special. Hermann Borlaug, who many of you probably don't know, he's a guy who created a form of seed that can grow more wheat on less land. He won the Nobel Peace Prize, and it was said of Norman Borlaug that no one in modern history has done more to end world hunger than Norman Borlaug. That's someone that's special. But see, they have skills and abilities that set them apart from the rest. They can do things most others can't. That's why they're special. Social activists know they have none of that. They have nothing to differentiate them from the common man, although they so desperately want to be. They want to be the elitists, but they know that they're not. So what do? They go into social activism. That doesn't require skill or abilities. All it requires is for you to have a loud mouth and to regurgitate the talking points you're told to regurgitate. That's it. And you get to yell at people and hold your nose up at them and talk down to them and tell them that they're evil and bigots and istophobes and all this other stuff. And yet you're the virtuous one. They're losers. They're losers at life. And that is who we've let into all these industries, into the movies and the music and comics and, business, sports, journalism. We've let in all these social activists, and they've destroyed everything they've touched. And now the chickens are coming home to roost. This is why you're seeing all this right now. An entire generation who came up thinking that social activism was the way to go is now finding out that no, social activism actually just destroys whatever it doesn't fix anything. It doesn't build anything better. It doesn't make anything worthwhile. It just destroys whatever it touches. DIE, diversity, inclusion, and equity. There's a reason it spells out what it does, because that's what it does to everything it touches. And that's what we're seeing now. And that's why these journalists are so salty. The thing that they thought made them special, I'm a journalist, I'm important. Now you're not. And what's going on while the journalists are busy crying about losing their validation awards? Well, we got this. Here's everyone's favorite cum dump, Hadorantos. Once again, spewing more of that same gaslighting talking point about, oh, comics are doing awesome. Look at the IVC2 numbers. And then, your boy Zach comes in. 40% of your coworkers were laid off this year, and IDW was delisted from the New York Stock Exchange. The massive bump in sales is due to manga, YA graphic novels, and crowdfunding being added to the sales report. You're welcome. You see, there it is. Even as all the stuff is falling apart, well, just keep the gaslighting going. Just keep lying to people. And again, Steve Orlando. Someone's asking about the Scarlet Witch book he was working on. Sales are struggling alongside the whole industry. Right now, we'll hopefully get to 10. To get to issue 15 issues, sales will need to continue to climb. So again, but I thought comics are doing great. Remember, Heidi McDonald told us, yeah, comics aren't dying. Yet here he is saying right here, sales are struggling. Hopefully they'll make 10 issues, maybe. And if you want to make 15, well, you better get those numbers to climb, buddy, because otherwise they're not going to make that. Kelly Sue DeConnick, a classic from a couple years ago. But I do think that if the corporations that acquired comic publishers thought of us more as R&D packages rather than IP packages, everyone would be better off. And by everyone, she means her activist ilk and her. They would be better off because, see, then they could continue to create products that don't sell, and it doesn't matter because they get to have a job in perpetuity making money. And they can continue to attack the fan base, calling them istophobes every day on the social media, and yet they still get a paycheck. You see? That's who she means by everyone. The hacktivists who've infiltrated the industry. Don't create a worthwhile product. No. Just make us R&D so then we can get a continuous check and not have to worry about like having to produce something of value to keep getting paid. And then here's Zach Davidson with, again, more great information here, because it's not just the mainstream that's suffering, even the smaller guys are suffering. A sad thing every creative person learns is that the amount of people shouting "take my money" does not correlate to actual sales. We've all made something people screamed they would buy, and then no one actually bought. He's talking about basically Twitter likes. You get all your Twitter likes, people support and saying, "Yeah, this is great stuff. Yeah, do it. Yeah, I'll buy it. Yeah." And then they never show up. Again, we've called that the phantom audience. The modern audiences. The phantom audience, the one they threw the old audience over for that never showed up. That's who he's talking about. So remember, when you shout at someone how much you would support them and buy their product, it doesn't actually help. I know you want to make them feel good, and that is nice. But having boxes of unsold merch at home makes no one feel good. No, I'm sure it doesn't. Because here's one of those people right there who can back that up. Everyone's favorite butt burglar, Joe Glass, who on his crowdfunding says he never wanted to make money when he did his crowdfunding. He wanted to make just a little bit over the minimum so that he could publish the books. He literally said that. But here he is now. I still have loads of copies of Acceptable Losses and Glitter Vipers left, and it would be good to make a dent in those so I can empty my storage locker and save some money each month. Ha ha ha. So if you like queer inclusive comics, check out my store. So here it is here. He wants you to buy his books so he can stop having to pay money to a storage locker to store all this crap in that's not moving. This is what's going on in the industry while Heidi McDonald is crying about not wearing her Eisner dress anymore. Here's Will Robson, a comic book creator. This is during the Comics Broke Me saga. Remember that, guys? Remember that from, what was it, was that August of last year? No, wait, June of last year, yes. It was payments. Usually late, always low rate. Currently waiting on a month plus late payment. I hate net 30. I have to spend a month drawing to then get to paid a whole other month late. 60 days to see 10 to 15 pages worth of pay is wrong. And so then someone asks, well, what's net 30? And he goes, when you complete the work, you're paid 30 days after completion date. So when it takes you 30 to 60 days to complete a set of work, you are paid 30 days after. This is crap when you're a freelancer because you go from company to company and job to job. So this never balances out. Yes, so he has to do his work, which let's say he does 30 days worth of work. Pardon me for a moment there, folks. You do 30 days of work, and then when it's completed, you have to wait another 30 days before they pay you. So basically, you're doing a job, and you have to wait 2 months to get paid. And so you never caught up on what you're owed. And this is on top of the payments being late themselves, as he's saying. Remember, that was the big thing, is all these companies who were, 3, 4, 5, 6 months in the rears of owing creators money for work that's already been completed. And here's more. This is why the Eisner is so important to the journalists. This guy here, this David Lasky, he perfectly exemplifies why it's so important to them and why they're so salty over losing it. 10 years ago, my graphic novel won the Eisner Award. Why have I not created a follow-up book? Well, after finishing our book, my co-author and I were broke. I went back to work for a bakery. My co-author was homeless for a while. Our graphic novel didn't make us royalties. We received $19,000 in advance money for a 200-page historical-based graphic novel that took 3.5 years to complete. That figure is divided between 2 people, with the last couple of thousands going towards hiring background inkers, so the book will be completed when the publisher wanted it. Oh, and from that $19,000, also subtract 15% for our agent, who talked the publisher up from their original offer of $5,000. So this is the kind of pay that you get in the industry. I mean, maybe not be like one of the big superstars, maybe, but this is what like 90% of the workforce gets. But notice, he had to go right in the very beginning. 10 years ago, my graphic novel won the Eisner Award. See, and that's why it's so important. See, this is all he has now. He didn't make any money doing this. He said he didn't get any royalties. His co-author was homeless for a while because it was so bad. But this is what's going on while Heidi cries about not getting Eisners. Why not make a new character? And again, it goes beyond just money side, but even creative side. Why not make new character? Because they won't have the platform an existing character will have. We've been writing trans characters and advocating for trans characters for years. They're only now kind of putting Dreamer in comics. Ultimate Spider-Woman was thrown away. So there it is right there. This is why we see all the changes in all the classic characters. All this stuff we hear about representation and inclusivity and diversity and all this other jazz. It's all bullshit. This is the real reason why they do it. Because they could easily create new characters and they say, oh, we've been doing that for years. But those characters never hit because those characters aren't about anything outside of their identity. And so nobody cares about them. So they can go out and make all the new characters they want and nobody supports them. So we need to put it in an existing character because they have the platform. And why is that so important? Well, because that's how we get out our agenda. That's how we get out our propaganda. That's how we get out our ideology. See, it's not about creating good work. It's about forcing people to listen to what we have to say, even when they don't want to hear it. Never mind that the whole point of entertainment and escapism is exactly that. So we don't have to listen to assholes like Harley here. We don't want to hear their bullshit. We need an escape from that. That's what entertainment is supposed to be. But that's why they have to inject it into everything. Again, now this is you would think this is like something, this is story worthy. This is something that they should be writing, 3 or 4 piece sections on in the comics journalism, but they never talk about this. They never talk about this stuff. Except, of course, very few, like this little snippet I got from a Bounding into Comics thing where Chuck Dixon talks about it. And they go, nevertheless, even if current Marvel and DC comic creators do indeed have new characters, these characters tend to fall flat with readers. Bane creator Chuck Dixon explains why. When they do create new characters, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to create an appealing character. In fact, they seem dead set on creating unappealing characters that simply exist to piss off the majority of comic book readers, to basically say, if you don't like this character, there's something wrong with you. Go away. That's right. That's exactly true. That's 100% true, what he said. And that is why the companies no longer have money. This is why their books fail. This is why they can't, and this is why they can't afford to pay their shills in the shill media. This is why the shill media is no longer important. And this is why they did away with their journalism validation award. Is because they're no longer necessary. Because they were always one of the most easily disposable things that the companies had is these shills. And now that times are tight, now that money is hard to find, now that people aren't spending like they used to spend, they need to cut the costs. And you can see, again, I showed you all those stories in other media. It's the same thing. The money isn't there So who's getting kicked out the door? The activist journalists, the hacktivists. They're gone. They're no longer important. And why is it in comics is it that way? This is why. They're creating unappealing work that appeals to no one and telling those people, if you don't like it, you're a bigot. We don't want your money, Nazi. And so they take them at their word. They walk away with their money and go find something else to spend it on to escape their political nonsense. And then comics die on the vine. And then, well, now the companies don't have money to pay for advertising. So the places like The Beat and CBR and Bleeding Fool and Bleeding Cool, they don't have the money to keep doing what they do. Dominoes, baby. I've said it before. Dominoes, one after the other, it's going to fall, and that's what we're seeing. Yep. Gail Simone. Marketing in comics is a mess. Right now is a mess. The discourse is mostly yelling. Sometimes the people yelling don't even read comics. There are far fewer news sites and message boards than in years past. Marketing teams prioritize their big news. That leaves you to do it. Talking about promoting your books. Yes, that's true. Modern creators have to promote their own work, which again, for the ones doing crowdfunding, they have no problem doing that. People in Comicsgate and Eric July and others who are neither one of those things, but do their own independent stuff. Yeah, they have no problem doing that. They get on streams, they make videos, they keep people updated in emails on what's going on with the work. They have no problem doing that marketing. They know how to do it. But see, Gail thinks that's wrong. Oh, they shouldn't have to do that. That's not how it's always been done. Marketing used to be done by the big company. Well, but the big companies don't have the money anymore. Your corporate overlords no longer have lots of disposable cash to just burn in loss leaders. And that's why, and again, there's fewer news sites and message boards. Well, yes, because people aren't using them anymore. People don't believe them anymore. People don't trust them anymore. And again, the corps aren't paying for them anymore. So therefore, they're gone. This wasn't hard to figure out. But of course, this is the same one who said, the 10 poles that hold up the industry are white, cis, straight, able-bodied, and male. It's okay to chip away at that. Yeah, chip away at the 10 poles to bring the house down. That doesn't go to anything bad, right? Look at this. Again, look at this. And then go, marketing in comics is a mess. It's okay to chip away at that. Make it make sense, folks. Make it make sense. It is bitch boy Tom Brevoort. I don't, it's kind of baffling to view having a small audience as desirable. I don't view that as desirable, but bigots can keep their money. Marvel's always been about inclusion and against intolerance. Except, of course, their own intolerance for anybody who doesn't think like them. That intolerance is perfectly fine. But any other, no, can't have that. And inclusion, yeah, inclusion. So long as, you agree with us. Then we'll include you. If otherwise, you're excluded. And that's okay. Make it make sense, folks. Make it make sense. The cum dump once again. Comic professionals aren't customer service representatives. Yes, they are. I mean, they may not see themselves that way, but they absolutely are. See, again, this is something that even the comics journalists are starting to understand now. You spend all this time attacking readers, attacking, certain people, and now you don't have the money coming in like you used to. You're not getting the accolades like you used to. Why? Well, because people are walking away. Because they know bad service when they get it. So, I mean, I guess in the technical sense, she is right. They are customer service representatives because they suck at it. But that's their own fault. That's not the fault of the people. There's more stuff going on in the industry. Black and, talk about an associate editor position at Marvel being available. Black and brown people, queer people, people that are not cis dudes, and any combo of the above. If you are even a little curious about being an associate editor for Marvel, click through, apply. You are needed. Not are you talented. Not do you have the skills. Not do you have the merit and the abilities. Just if you're black or brown or queer or, not a cis white dude. As long as you're not that, apply. I mean, again, these are the same people telling you, what did Tom Brevoort say? What was about inclusion and against intolerance? Black and brown people, queer people, and people that are not cis dudes and any kind above, if you were even curious, apply. So you're cutting people out. That seems to be discriminatory, doesn't it? That's not inclusive, is it? They can never even get their own narratives to function the way they want. But again, this is what we're seeing. This is what's going on in the comic book industry and in lots of other industries and entertainment as well. And it leads to stories like this. DC Comics got evicted from their swanky Burbank offices. In the heady days of April 2015, DC Comics officially closed their New York offices for good. The legendary comic book publisher had finally finished the move to Burbank, California, which began in October of 2013 to open brand spanking new offices closer to their parent company, Warner Brothers, and into a future where it was expected they would experience many more years of success under the guidance of Diane Nelson, Dan DiDio, and Jim Lee. But the writing may be on the wall for DC this week because in less than 7 years, DC Comics has been officially booted out of their swanky West Coast offices. See, there you are. And that's not all. See, again, Heidi brought it up herself when she was arguing with He-Man Skyver. Abstract Comics files for bankruptcy, owes creators 5-some figures. Again, and goes back to Robson. Remember, he cried about, I'm owed months worth of pay that I haven't received yet for work that's been completed. This is the kind of thing that's happening in the comic book industry. Anyway, Frankie's Comics, specializing in variant covers, declares bankruptcy. Oh, look at that. Look at 3 comic stores closed in December and 1 opened. Huh, look at that. Oh, my goodness. This is what's going on. These are the stories that are really happening in the comic book industry. Do you see Heidi McDonald talking about that? Or Rich Johnston? Or they talk about any of the reasons for this stuff? No, of course not. Can't talk about that. That would put a bad light on us because we're at least in part responsible for this stuff. We've put out reviews for books that were garbage saying they weren't. We've attacked people because of political beliefs that we don't share. We pick and choose who we're going to cover based on ideology. We'll tell you what's a news story, not what actually is newsworthy. They've destroyed their credibility. No one believes them anymore. No one listens to them anymore. And now they're losing their accolades. They're losing their validation awards. And they're crying about it. No, you can't do this. You'll be sorry when journalism's gone. Honey, journalism has been gone out of the entertainment industry for a long time. A long time. Years. If anything, this might be the chance to bring journalism back. If you can get some people who actually are authentic and trustworthy and honorable, who will actually be more objective, who will cover actual stories as they happen, not based on if that person fits the ideological mold I think a person should have. If you can get that back in, yeah, maybe you'll see some real journalism again. But you're certainly not going to see it from the likes of Heidi McDonald and her ilk. What you're going to see more of is stuff like this. Again, just from, last month, Mark Wade, some guy telling him, he's, I love your work, but, it seemed to highlight that the industry is facing is getting piled, they get piled on and attacked. And he goes, I think a lot of us would rather just see the industry burn down than get together with the alt-right. I know I would. Sorry. Mark Wade. And again, even more. This is, Ryan Higgins, owner of Comic Conspiracy in California. Just pure bigotry from many retailers these days. I prefer the whole industry burn down tomorrow than side with them. Go back to whatever garbage Comicsgate has on Indiegogo and get out of the industry. Keep pushing this stuff. This stuff being, again, the woke bullshit. Gay Robin, gay Superman. Turning Vixen into a sexual predator. Making the Joker pregnant. Turning Iceman gay. These are the things. Keep doing that. All the Spider people. Let's have a gay Spider-Man and a disabled Spider-Man and a pregnant Spider-Man and all this kind of crap. Keep producing this. Keep pushing the stuff that doesn't sell. That he himself said. Even in his shop, these books don't sell. In one of the most liberal parts of the country, and even there, it won't sell. But keep pushing them, guys. Don't listen to the people who are saying that stuff doesn't sell and we should go back to what's tried and true and actually does sell. No. They're just a bunch of bigots and they can just go get out of the industry. And if that won't happen, if you're going to go back to what used to be, well, then I'd rather everything just burn to the ground. This is the mentality of these people. And again, was there a big story about Ryan Higgins calling for industry to burn down? Or Mark Wade? No, not really. I mean, again, the content creators that Heidi thumbs her nose at, they made a big deal about these things because they actually care. But there wasn't big write-ups on The Beat or Bleeding Cool or anywhere else about these guys talking about burning the industry down. They didn't care. Why? Because the journalists actually agree with them. The shill media agrees with these guys. That's what they think. If it can't be what we want it to be, burn it down. And that's what they've done. Again, Heidi's told you herself in her piece, we will decide who will be a star and who won't. We'll decide who gets a place at the table and who doesn't. We'll decide who gets to have a career and doesn't. This is what they want. This is the power they want over people and over the industry. This is what they want. And this is why the loss of the Eisner bothers them so much, because it's one less thing they can use to validate themselves and say, yes, see, we are important. Yes, we are powerful. They're beginning to see that they've never really had any power. This is what I found a little while ago. Now, I'm going to read this, and you're going to think it's something on our side, but it's really not. And I'll explain in a minute here. It goes, the decisions being made today by publishers, media companies, TV studios, and comic publishers are going to all blow up in everyone's face in about 5 years. These things take a while to see the consequences. Now, take note. This was said a year and a half ago. Now, this sounds like they're talking about what we're talking about here today. All the stuff that's going wrong and how it's blowing up in everyone's face. And now even the journos, the shill media are suffering from it. That's the consequences. But no, they weren't talking about that. They were talking about because they had canceled the Batgirl movie. Remember that? The big deal about the Batgirl movie that got shelved and locked in the vault for all time because it was so horrible they didn't want anyone to see it. That's the decision that's being made. Saying we want to put out actual product that will actually sell. That's the decision being made is going to blow up in their face, she says. And yet, again, based on what we're actually seeing going on right now with the shills in the media and other things I've shown you here today, this is more true than this person ever realized. And that's because this is what it comes down to. I almost thought of using this image for the thumbnail for this stream, but I thought, nah, I'll save it for inside. And there it is. This says it all. Right here. And the shill media will never tell you this. They're doing like Heidi McDonald does. Oh, comics are doing great. Don't believe the charlatan comments saying they're dying. Comics are doing great. Look, Heather Antos posted the ICV2 graph. Don't you see the numbers going up? But we all know different. We all know this isn't the case. It's all lies. It's all gaslighting. That's what they do. That's what the comic book media is. A bunch of lying, gaslighting propagandists. They know it. We know it. And now they're starting to lose what little, perceived legitimacy they thought they still had. And that's why they're crying. That's why they're whining about all this. Because it all comes back down to this. Once again, leave it to Eric July to spell it out for you. And if you don't like my politics, you can still buy my book. I'll still have you as a customer. Amazing. You don't have to agree with him on politics or, I would guess, any issue. And yet he still will happily give you the great service and quality that he has given everybody else who does. This used to be a standard we had. Not just in comics, but in all entertainment, in all industries, even in journalism. You don't have to like my politics, but I'll still give you a fair hearing. I'll still be objective. I'll still give you, fair play. But they don't do that anymore. They haven't done that for a long time. Heidi McDonald, Rich Johnson, Chris Arendt, all the rest of the shills, they sold their souls long ago for access and for little validation awards. The one they're crying about losing now. That's what's going on. This has been a long time coming. It's been a very long time coming. And it was just this simple. It was this simple. This is all that was necessary to save everything, was this. And they just couldn't do it. They just could not do it. You know, there it is. So this is why. So to bring it all down and to put it all in one solid lump for you, the reason you see the shills screaming about losing their award is because they feel power slipping from them. They thought themselves the kingmakers. They thought themselves the power behind the throne. They thought themselves able to decide who should be a part of the industry and who shouldn't. And they had many years where it seemed like that was the case. But now, because of economic realities, which they have no control over, have come to roost. And the corporations who subsidize them, the way they subsidize the publishers and these creators who are all activists, because they no longer have the deep pockets that they once did to just throw money at them. They're finding out just how unimportant they actually are. And it angers them. And it terrifies them. Because they know they have nothing else. What's Heidi McDonald going to do if she loses the beat? You know? Does she have any skills or abilities to set her apart from others? No, she doesn't. She knows she doesn't. And that's why they're so afraid. You know, they're finally realizing, you know, as much as they don't want to realize, they're not special. You know, I've said this many times. Too many people confuse the word special and different. You know, and part of it isn't their fault. Some of these people, you know, Heidi's old enough, she should have known, but like some of the younger ones, you know, mommy and daddy and their counselors and their teachers and their professors, they all told them they were special all their lives. You're special. You're a special snowflake. You're so good. You're so special. You're so virtuous. That's all they ever heard. And then they got in the real world. And the real world doesn't play that. The real world doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your need for validation. All it cares about is what you can do and how well you can do it. Do you have something of value to offer society, business, whatever? That's what it asks. And if your answer is no, well, then it treats you accordingly. And that's what these people found out the hard way. And that is why they went into doing what they've done. That's why, again, they became activists. Because this is what activists do. They are losers at life. And so they become activists so they can feel important. So they can feel special. So they can feel validated. And that they can then attack those they don't like, feel virtuous in doing it, and tell themselves that they're justified. This is what they do. You know, I just spent the last 2 hours here showing you in the media and other places how it is done. And, you know, again, this has been a long time in coming. You know, we all called this long ago. We all knew this. I mean, again, like I said, we spent years begging them, stop this. Don't do this. Stop doing these things. Stop attacking readers. Stop trashing the icons. Stop pushing away the audience. You need their money. You need their support. And they told us, yo, you're just, you know, bigots. You're istophobes. We don't need you. We'll bring in a new audience. We'll replace you. And you can see where it's led them. And now they're losing everything. Everything they valued. Everything that was dear and near to them. And I can't feel sorry for them in the least little bit. Because this is what they deserve. This is what they brought upon themselves. It could have been so much different. All it would have took was one simple word. One simple word that someone like, you know, Eric July shows in that post I showed you by doing what he did. One little word that many are showing in the independent market, in crowdfunding. That word is humility. That's what's missing. When you boil it all down, in the comics industry, in the media industry, in the entertainment industry, in so many industries. The thing that is missing is that the people in the power positions lack humility. Your Bob Igers, your Heidi McDonald's, your Joe Quesadas, your Tom Brevoorts, they're all the same on the inside. There are people who are too full of themselves, losers at life, who became activists so they could feel important. And now they're finding out just how unimportant they actually are. And that's what the media class is starting to see right now, with all the layoffs everywhere, the loss of awards. When you've thrown away your credibility and show lack of humility, this is where you will ultimately end up. And I can't say that it's undeserved. So, suck it up. I guess the only thing left to say to them all is what they told those West Virginia coal miners when they were losing their jobs several years ago. Remember that story? There was a story about all those coal miners losing their jobs. And what did the journalism class and all the rest say to them then? Hashtag learn to code. Well, I guess that's now what Heidi and her ilk have to go through. Heidi, learn to code. Rich Johnston, learn to code. Chris Arendt, learn to code. That's your future. And you brought it on yourselves. But hopefully from this, something better will rise. I'm not overly optimistic about that. I'm too much of a realist to feel that way, but I hope somewhere that something better comes. Maybe some real journalism can return once we get rid of these media shills. Because the rot that they represent goes a lot deeper than a single validation award. And it's the only way we can fix things is to get rid of that rot. And so I hope it comes sooner than later. Well, that'll about do it for what I have for you today. I want to thank you all for joining me. And before I head out here, I want to take note, if you got any comments down there, throw me a comment. I'd like to hear what you got to say. If you liked what you heard, please give me some likes. I appreciate that as well. It helps the algorithms. And before I head out today, I got one more thing to share with you. So I'm going to share the screen one last time. As you guys know, I'm working on a little something called the Sequential Art Showcase. And I just did a new teaser for it a little bit ago, so you may not have seen it, so I'll play it for you now so you guys can check it out. And there you go, little promo intro I did there for you. Is another one. The Sequential Art Showcase is a little something I want to do where I get together with someone else and we each bring a piece of sweet comic art to the table and we talk about a little comic art discussion, as it were. Sort of like what these are, but instead of about being a serious topic, it's something a lot more fun, a lot more enjoyable, because I feel that's important. While it's important to talk about the kind of stuff I did today, it's also important to have fun as well. And so I want to try to bring a little more fun. So if you out there, if you got any comic book art you wouldn't mind sharing on a live stream with somebody, hit me up. You can either, go to the channel here and go to my about page. You can hit me up with an email, or down in the link below, I got some links to MeWe and to Comic Art Fans where I can be reached. And just drop me a note and let's get this going, because I'd like to get that started sooner than later and get things rolling on that. It'll be a monthly format, just something I would do once a month. And whether it's someone who has a large supply of art or a very small one, I don't care. Just come on and, I'll keep rotating people in and out as necessary. Just something fun. I want to bring some fun to people because, again, like I said, we all need entertainment. We all need escapism. And so this is just my small way of trying to provide a little bit of that, that the that the mainstream seems unwilling to give you guys right now. So try to make some fun for you guys, and hopefully you guys can help me out. So if you're somebody who has comic art, or you know somebody who does, have them hit me up so we can talk it out and maybe get them on the show and get things rolling, because I want this to be a big year for this channel, and I want to try to grow it and get some more things going on it. So let's get that rolling. And I want to thank you all again for joining me today. I hope this was informative and maybe even a little entertaining in itself, I hope. And I'll be back with more stuff soon. I don't know if you checked it out, but the new Why It's Great with Pops dropped earlier this month, so you can go check that out on his channel as well as on mine. I have a link to the playlist where you can see that. And our next one's coming up here sometime next month, so that's coming. And for other stuff, well, like I said, I got some ideas I'm working on besides the Sequential Art Showcase, that is. And so hopefully I'll have some of that for you sooner than later. And, just we'll see where the year goes. But I want to thank you all for joining me. And until next time, take care.